So first and foremost, I want to thank you guys for coming. I reached out to Arthur and wanted to do this because I think it's important. For me, I want to build a relationship with all of you, our media that covers us, our fan base. I think that's really, really important. I did this at my last couple stops. We set up weekly media, make sure that questions are getting answered, that people want to have answered. And obviously, I thought today was a good time because we just announced a big part of our staff. As you noticed, I brought my staff from South Florida, big on loyalty, right? I think a big part of how I got here and how I'm now the head coach at Providence College is the staff that I've had assembled for the last several years. And so it was important for me to have that continuity. We've got a great relationship. I've got guys that aren't afraid to check me and question me, and that's how I think you get better. And so having that continuity and also great people that are really going to be phenomenal representatives of this program and Providence College as well as this community. So I'm really fired up to have the staff announced. Obviously, big day in our world tomorrow as the transfer portal opens. We are obviously been watching film and taking deep dives into the guys that have publicly announced on social media that with their intent to transfer. We obviously cannot talk to them until they enter the portal officially tomorrow. There is some guys that are in the portal already, graduate transfers that you can have conversations with, but we're really excited. I think it's some people view it as a massive challenge, and although it can be challenging, but it also gives you an opportunity to build a roster really from a clean slate with guys that fit the way that we want to play and guys that really want to be at Providence College. And I can tell you just from the early calls that we're getting from coaches around the country, there's a lot of interest in playing basketball at Providence College. I think the history of the basketball program here, the administration, how much they've supported this program, obviously being in the Big East, those are all very attractive things. And then I'd like to think our style of play and what we've done at our last several spots also play a factor into that. So before I get into questions, what I'll tell you is I think what you can expect from us is as we move into this next period of where we start to build our roster, there's a couple things that are very important to us. We're never going to sacrifice talent for character. We're going to recruit high character young men that represent this program, Providence College, and this community in the right manner. That's very, very important to me. I always tell people all the time when they ask me about guys, I say, listen, I spend more time with our young men than I do with my family. So it's very important that we're around good people. And so you can count on that. We are going to get very, very talented basketball players here. We've had a lot of success building rosters every spot that we've been, whether it's been my time as an assistant or even recently in the last several years, my time as a head coach. I'll tell you, we put together the best rosters in the leagues that we've been in. We did that at the University of Buffalo. We did that at Alabama. And then as a head coach, both Arkansas State and South Florida. We plan to do the same thing here. When I took this job, there's a lot of boxes that I felt that needed to be checked. And I said it in my press conference, but Providence College checked all those boxes. And so when we're able to get on the phone with these young men and their support systems over the next couple of days here, they're going to hear the enthusiasm in our voice about our vision for this program and how we want to move forward. And I think that you'll be very thrilled to see some of the announcements as they come in. We're going to target some of the best players in the country. We're in a position to recruit the best players in the country. And so, I would tell you simply this, as that process unfolds, don't believe everything you read on the internet. We're going to be on lists of people that we've probably never spoken to before. We're going to be not on lists of people that we're heavily recruiting. That's just the way that this era in college athletics is going right now. But we're going to be very diligent in how we do it. We're going to turn every stone. We take a very analytical approach to building our roster. We value some things on an extremely high level, skill being one of them. Being able to shoot the basketball is very important to us in the way that we play. You've got to be able to play at the pace in which we play. That's very, very important. And so as you start to see some of these names unfold, and hopefully some announcements in the coming weeks, understand that as we build this thing, we're taking a great approach in how we construct this roster. And so I think one of the great things, obviously, you were able to see last week is starting with the commitment for Ryan Mila to stay here. I think that was phenomenal. I think when you see a young man that had the success that he did, make a decision to not enter the portal and stay here at Providence College, it tells you a couple things. It tells you, A, how special this place is, because that's not the popular thing to do right now, right? B, it tells you the character of that young man. C, it tells you a lot about this community and this fan base, right? Ryan wants to be here. He understands our vision. We had some great conversations, and it was a really exciting couple days in that process with him and his family, being able to make that decision to be here because he shared that same enthusiasm and excitement that I have to be the new head coach here. So with that being said, I'll open it up to questions, answer anything you got regarding how we're going to operate moving forward.
So, are you surprised at the number of players in the portal who want to play for Coach Hodgson?
Well, right now there's only a handful of players in the portal, obviously, because of those are graduate transfers or strictly graduate transfers right now. So I can't say how many players themselves want to play for Coach Hodgson at Providence College. What I can tell you is on a daily basis, we speak to people all over the college basketball world, right? And they know what we've built to other places, and they know how special Providence is. And so as we talk to high school coaches and AAU coaches and just relationships that we've had throughout the business, we feel like we're going to get a great response.
Coach, I would imagine you and your staff have a game plan. So how quickly do you think you'd be able to restock the roster?
We do have a game plan, but I'll tell you this: for us, it's not a quickness thing. It's getting the right guys, right? So we're going to spend a lot of time doing our homework. Again, we use some analytical models to build our roster. I think that's very, very important. You can't have 13 guys that want to be the leading scorer. That's not going to work well, right? So you've got to have clearly defined roles. You've got to build your roster from starting with some guys that you think can be some of your highest usage rate guys, fill in needs from there. But we're gonna work day and night here over the next couple of weeks. I can't tell you how fast it's gonna happen because one thing we respect the timing. We always tell our potential student athletes our timing is their timing, right? We're not gonna push a kid. We're not gonna pressure them. Obviously, with that, there comes to a point where sometimes you may have to let them know, hey, if you don't come, we're gonna have to go to, the next person, so on and so forth. And but we're not. It's not gonna be a quick deal, right? These are very important decisions, very thoughtful decisions. We watch a ton of film on each kid. We do we call high school coaches, AAU coaches, anybody that we can to learn about their character. And quite frankly, I don't want to take a commitment from a young man after one or two phone conversations. I want to get to know them as a human being because we're making a massive investment into them as players and people. And so we want to learn about them before we fully make a commitment on both sides.
Can we assume that some of the guys who have gone into the portal from Providence, either you just decided to pass on them or they couldn't come to an agreement, or is there a door open for some of them to maybe come back?
Yeah, there's a door open for some of them to come back. What I'll say is this, what I mentioned before, when there's a coaching change, I think it's fair, right? Those young men didn't originally come to Providence to play for Bryan Hodgson. And so we've had conversations with every single one of them. On the same token, again, we are very particular about the type of player we want and the way that we're going to play. We recruit to that. We don't change how we play based on who's here. We're going to recruit who we want that's going to be able to play the way that we want to play, right? So we've had some of those conversations as well. I would tell you, for those worried about any of the young men that have entered the portal, we are going to put together a fantastic roster. So there needs to be no worry. But long story short, yeah, for some of them, there is an option to return here to Providence. And every single one of those young men, it's a case-by-case basis, to be quite honest with you.
Brian, what's the balance between players who maybe fit your system, players who maybe are good fits for the Big East, and more importantly, maybe come at a good budget price? What's that balance there between those three?
Yeah, it's a great question. So two of them, all three, we have to check all three boxes, right? A good player for the Big East doesn't necessarily mean they're automatically going to be a good player for Bryan Hodgson and his staff in the Big East, right? There's going to be enough players out there where you can find really good players that fit the Big East, but also fit the way that we want to play. We are also, one of the things that you 1,000% can't listen to is when you hear all these crazy numbers about spend and what rosters cost and what kids are asking for. 99% of that stuff that you're going to see on the internet is false. I'm just going to tell you right now. We are going to be phenomenal stewards of our resources here. That is very, very important to me, because the people that are donating money, the money that comes into this college, the money that is being entrusted in us to build this roster, we take a tremendous amount of pride in spending that wisely and being great stewards of our resources. We are going to pass on guys that we don't think the value matches, what they're asking for, and vice versa. So we're going to make sure that they fit the way we want to play, they fit the Big East, and most importantly, it makes sense to us financially. If you go spend all your money on one or two guys, right, I don't think that's a recipe for success. And so we're going to, again, in our process, we're going to be very, very detailed. We'll probably take a more mathematical, analytical approach than 95% of the rest of the country does in roster building. We have somewhat similar to an NBA model. It doesn't exactly mirror that, but I'll tell you, we're gonna try to find value. That's for sure.
So Brian, just taking off of that, when you're trying to secure players, hypothetically, do you look at it as trying to get 2 or 3 guys that might be $3 million guys, and maybe 7 guys who are $100,000 guys, or how do you view that balance?
It's we're definitely not going to get $3 million guys. I can tell you that right now. But what I'll tell you is, there's not really an exact science to that right now, because right now, when you see, especially on social media, like I mentioned a minute ago, these numbers are all over the place, right? What I'll tell you is, we're going to look at our needs, right, for each position. We have values based on an analytical model we use, our own eyes, watching film, the market, right? The market today is not what the market is tomorrow when the portal opens, because at the end of the day, how do you know the market before the portal opens when someone can actually send a contract to a student athlete and they can return it signed, right? The market is set by A, what these student athletes are asking for, B, what people are willing to pay. So once we figure that out, and we're going to, right? We're not going to just go out and throw out these lump sums of money at people. Once we figure out where the market's at, we'll adjust accordingly, right, within our budget. And but I really think it's important to have a roster full of guys that compete, to be honest with you. If I'm signing guys 9, 10, 11, 12 and don't plan on them playing for us, why would we spend any money on signing guys 9, 10, 11, 12, right? And so it's not going to be a 2 or 3 guy deal. It's not going to be a 5 guy deal. We're going to build a roster top to bottom that we think can be impactful here at Providence.
You said on a podcast over the weekend that agents are basically starting at $1 million right now. I took from that you guys are going to be comfortable waiting and seeing the market take form. Is that true?
Yeah. So I always I relate it to this, right? If you're selling your house and someone walks in and says, "Man, I'm in love with your house. This is absolutely gorgeous." And in the back of your mind, you're willing to sell your house for $500,000, and they're just, "I'm in love with your house. I'll give you $2 million right now." Are you going to say no? Right? So I think right now, when I said that on that podcast, it was on a radio show with the Field of 68. It was really tongue in cheek to talk about right now the numbers are fake. They're not real, right? Is every kid asking for $1 million? No, I don't know. We're not talking to the kids right now. We're talking to a couple graduates that are in, but nobody really knows what the market is, right? I think the market last year really messed some things up for people because in some of these, in some of the football leagues in particular, and I wasn't in the Big East, so I can't speak to it, but I worked in the SEC. There was a lot of money that was front loaded before July when the rev share cap came into place, right? So I think people are initially gonna try to base financial requests based on that market, but that market's not the same this year, if that makes sense. And so, yes, we're gonna go after some guys that we really like that have maybe announced a week or two ago that they plan to go in the portal. When they finally do, we're gonna get on the phone. We've already done our homework on film, and we're gonna go after them. We're gonna be competitive and make sure that we have a chance as long as their financial ask is within our means. But on the same token, we're also, yes, we may wait the market out a little bit and see what happens, because I am a firm believer that I think some things are going to balance out a little bit over time.
Coach, in building the roster, do you, especially in this day and age where players seem to move on a yearly basis, do you kind of look at guys as one-year solutions, or do you kind of blend guys with a couple of years of eligibility left, hoping to retain them?
Yeah, great question. I think ideally, right, I think as coaches, it is our job to have the mindset that we're going to have to replace 13 every year. And if we don't, that's phenomenal. If we can retain 4, 5, 6 guys, great, right? I think you look at some of the best programs in the country, they're able to retain, right? Winning usually helps. Being at a place like this with this facility and this fan base, those things help. And so hopefully eventually that's the plan. But I like to take the approach as a staff, prepare for the worst, and anything less than that's great, right? So we're going to take that approach every year. Okay, fellas, let's coach this group, build great relationships with them. Of course, we're going to want to retain guys, but in the back of our mind, as a coaching staff in this environment, if you are not at worst case scenario prepared to replace 13, then you're kidding yourself a little bit, right? Prepare for the worst, and again, if you're able to retain some guys, that's phenomenal.
Coach, following up on that, you've got to build, pretty much an entire roster coming up now. Do you prioritize certain positions, or is it just going after the individuals and then plugging in from there?
A little bit of both. I'll tell you, you don't see many great college basketball teams that don't have phenomenal lead guards, right? As you watch college basketball, I think the best teams in the country have phenomenal lead guards. Now, I say lead guards and not point guard because if you pay attention to the way that we play, we have multiple guys bringing the ball up the floor. But you've got to have some veteran lead guards that can have a massive impact for you. Now, the second portion of that is, if you look at the Final Four, all those teams were huge, right? There was a lot of size on those Final Four teams, even in the Elite Eight teams. Does that mean we're going to go out and get 4 7-footers? No, absolutely not. Not the way we play. If that's what you were looking for, I'm here to tell you, sorry, it's not happening. All right, we're going to go get some talented bigs, that's for sure. But we also value shooting at a very, very high level. You'll notice as you see some of the people that we recruit here over the next couple of weeks and hopefully get commitments from, we value shooting at a very, very high level. And we're going to continue to value that. It's very important. Ball's got to go in the basket to win games, right? And so we're going to, yes, you need a great lead guards. You need great bigs, but we got to have guys on the perimeter that can make shots as well. So I think I just told you we need a great starting 5, right? Is that what it sounds like? But we're going to, I can promise you, and that's why I wanted to do this. I love these questions. I think you'll be really, really excited as these things unfold. One thing I'm very confident in is the ability of my staff to build elite rosters, and we're definitely going to do that here. So
You're a coach that really values leverage on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
So you're really looking for two-way players that can not only score the ball and shoot it well, but also play on the defensive end of the court.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've done your homework. Yeah, so we value leverage very much. We look at a lot of things. We look at offensive, defensive leverage. We look at on-off splits, right? How the team performs when that young man's on the floor versus when he's off the floor, right? We look at we've built a website here. My staff, I've got some people back there in those offices a lot smarter than me. But we've built a great website that when a young man enters the portal, his number goes into essentially a algorithm that populates several different analytics companies that we use. They give us a grade, and then that grade also, not only do they give us a grade, it directly links their game film, it directly links very specific stats, but then it also gives us a fit score. And that fit score is based on data accumulated over the last 3 years of the teams that I've been a head coach for and how those young men fit directly into that style of play. And we hold that very highly, right? Numbers don't lie. If I did a podcast over the summer, I talk about it a ton, right? My philosophy as a coach is to eliminate the human error in coaching. And so we look at the numbers quite a bit. Now we also, we rely on our eyes quite a bit as well. And that character piece, I can't stress that enough, right? A guy can have the greatest leverage on both sides of the ball in college basketball, but if he's not a great fit from a character standpoint, then we're not going to move on him. But yeah, we value those things very heavily. And so, there may be guys in the portal right now that, our entire fan base is on Twitter telling me to go to recruit. But if he's a very negative defender, but happen to be 16 points a game, I can tell you I'm probably not going to recruit him, right? I'd rather have 12 a game and a plus defender because I think those things will ultimately win out.
Coach, going back to Ryan sticking around, staying here,
Yeah.
being loyal, what kind of example could that set for other young guys coming in here, whether they're freshmen or incoming guys from the portal?
It's massive. Ryan's an awesome kid. A young man. He's not a kid anymore, but I enjoyed every minute I spent with him. And we went. If you get a chance to talk to Ryan, some of the stuff I'm talking about, the analytics, we took a deep dive into Ryan's analytics and identified him right away as a guy that we wanted to be here. And we presented all that data to him. We broke down every shot that Ryan took at Providence College last year, every single shot. And we broke it down into the smallest margins you would never think of, right? On his finishing, did he take his hands all the way to the rim versus his hands floated away from the rim? Did he finish against the secondary defender or versus a primary defender versus multiple defenders? What those percentages look like. We then created a player development plan for him that we felt could really help Ryan make that next step. And as we went through that with him, I think what we understood, he quickly understood. Ryan's got a chance to be very special, especially with what we talked about and the way that we're going to develop his game. And so I think it'll speak volumes to young men that we call and that we're after. Like, hey, this guy was there last year. He wants to stay. That says something about this place. Listening to Ryan talk about this fan base and the atmosphere in the amp, like that was really cool for me. I've seen it. I've seen the videos. I've heard about it. I've never played against Providence College in the AMP. Coached in an NCAA tournament game in the Dunkin' Donuts Center when I was at Buffalo, but never against PC, and that's just different, right? And to hear him talk about that was really cool, and so it does set a precedent, absolutely, and a very positive one. He's a great young man with a great family, and I think when it's all said and done, Ryan will be a very popular man in Providence, Rhode Island for a long time to come.
Ryan, you talk about analytics. At the end of the day, when it comes to recruiting or even in-game decisions, what wins out? So when you make a decision, analytics or your gut?
You got to use a little bit of both, right? Now where that comes in, that's a great question, right? It's one of the things I preach all the time. I've in the past, like as a young coach, you'd recruit a student athlete and maybe they're struggling for 3-4 games. But you've had it made up in your mind that they were going to be a highly productive guy for you. And so you keep going to the well, right? And it just doesn't come, right? Eventually you got to listen to the numbers there. Now you're going to continue to build that man's confidence and develop him, but we are going to look at the numbers and we do full lineup analysis. We'll be able to tell you 5-6 games into our season, our best 2-man lineup, 3-man lineup, 4-man lineup, 5-man lineup, our best starting lineup, our best closing group. And then we make decisions from there. right? There is a time and a place for your gut, absolutely, and that'll factor in as well. But I think you're at your best when you're using a combination of both, quite honestly.
Ryan, it's no secret it's a transactional portal. How important is it for you to kind of build relationships with maybe someone's grassroots coach or their high school coach? How
Yeah.
important is that to you?
It's very important, right? You want to have those relationships because I think it's important, right? Those people that are in their lives help them get to the places they are now. More importantly, I mentioned earlier that character piece. That's really, you're going to find out a lot about these young men by talking to their high school coaches, their AAU coaches, their high school guidance counselors, right? Whoever we can get a hold of, that's where you're really going to learn about their character, right? And so building those relationships is great. I'll say this from my time as an assistant and a head coach, and I've built those relationships pretty strongly all over the country, and so that's where a lot of those conversations will start. Guys will tell you, once this portal opens, like, hey, Bryan, these guys that I played for me over the years are in the transfer portal. This is the type of style of play that they're looking for. Sometimes it's geographic, right? They want to head back home, or they want to get away from home, or there's a lot of different factors that go in. But a lot of times you'll get more information out of those coaches even than the young man, right? And so it's very important to have those relationships.
The last time most of us saw you was at your introductory press
Yeah.
conference. Just what have the last couple of weeks looked like for you?
Drinking out of a fire hose. But no, it's been phenomenal. I spent that first week here on campus, just getting things in order, meeting with the players that were here at Providence last year, spending some time with them. From there, went and spent a couple days at the Final Four, which is where we hold our annual coaches convention. Went to the head coaches meeting, learned about some of the potential rule changes or potential points of emphasis that may come down the pipe here from the NCAA. And spent a lot of times, honestly, in Indy at the Final Four, meeting with other coaches and talking about how things are going to progress here once the portal opens. And then was able to get home for about 36 hours. I say home, this is home now, but get back to my son and Jordan and be able to spend a little time with them. They will be back and forth. Right now, my 2-year-old son's in school. We've got him in school, and he's in swimming lessons. So we're going to let him finish those out over the next couple of weeks because, quite frankly, I'm going to be in the office for 12, 14 hours a day or on the road or doing official visits. So I wouldn't be able to spend much time with them, unfortunately. So no need to disrupt their life here for the next couple of weeks as we build this roster and then get them up here. But they'll be back and forth, and I'm very excited about that. But really just been soaking it all in. I'm excited to be here on campus, really excited to be able to get on the phone with some prospective student athletes tomorrow and talk about how special this place is from the time that I've been here on campus.
So non-conference question system. I know there was a return team with Colorado here. Is that still on the books, and is Maui still a possibility?
As far as I know, yes. I know about those two. I haven't seen a contract. I haven't talked scheduling. I know we're in a good place scheduling wise. I haven't got into the schedule quite yet. I know that we've got, I believe, Colorado returning. I've seen on the internet that we're playing Syracuse in the TD Garden. I don't know if that contract's signed or not. I know about Maui. Yes, that is. We plan on being in Maui Invitational, which is phenomenal. Outside of that, I don't know much. I'll tell you this: we'll get a great schedule together, but we're gonna make sure we have players to play in those games before we worry about the schedule too much more.
Coach, with the announcement today you made of the staff hirings, is that the end of your staff? Because last year you also had Tobin Anderson.
No, we'll have there should be probably, I would imagine, a potential for a couple more announcements. We're finalizing a few things now. That's not the end of the staff, no. Obviously, Tobin Anderson became a head coach at Tennessee Tech, which is phenomenal, but we're still having some conversations to add in a couple more pieces here officially.
What do you like tonight?
Gosh, I'll tell you what. I'm excited for the game. I really hope for the Big East that UConn wins. That'd be great. I think it's going to be a war. I mean, that's two great basketball coaches. Both of them, quite frankly, even though the UConn game ended up being somewhat close, quite frankly, those 2 Final Four games weren't close for 95% of the time. So this is going to be a heavyweight matchup tonight. I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to catch a few minutes of it in between film on potential portal targets. But for the Big East's sake, I'll be rooting for UConn. I can tell you that. That'll be about the only time I'm rooting for UConn. But tonight we will be.
Really
Yeah.
would be happy to hear that.
Yeah. I've got a great relationship with Coach Hurley. This is a league of great coaches and great players. I mean, it's phenomenal. Big East basketball is as good as it gets, and so to have this conference represented tonight in the national championship again is very special.